As you are aware, mental health is a huge topic, and sleep as well. Those are not anymore niche problem that in the past seldom were discussed. Today, probably everybody is suffering this condition. I'm going to focus on Generation Z because they basically are a sort of new target group of new consumers. But as we are going to see from the data, these needs extend way beyond Generation Z and involve each of us as well. And so, a few words about me. I am the Chief Scientific Officer in Probiotical. This is the younger me. I have to update the picture. But I started to work in the microbiome area in probiotics 20 years ago. And more than 10 years I spent studying the gut-brain axis as well. And so these are some numbers which create the base on what I'm going to present you and discuss later on. So Generation Z have mental health priorities, actually. And from this data, we can see that 46 of these young individuals list mental well-being as a top health priority. So they are seeking to improve their mental health. And 61 of them feel even distracted, unable to concentrate. There are many reasons why this is going to happen, and mostly are related to how we integrate with new tool devices and so on, but basically it is a concern from a mental health point of view. And more than 50% of them feel unsatisfied with their sleep as well. So this is a huge problem. If you unite this kind of information together to the fact that 40% of such individuals feel stressed most of the time, you can clearly understand why Generation Z is described as a generation of great anxiety and mental health problem. And this number is skyrocketing. In fact, 60% of such individuals increase in depression over time in the last 10 years. So pair that with loneliness feeling, fatigue feeling, and so on, give us the opportunity to look into some solution, hopefully that could help this population live better. And so, again, Generation Z is not the only target, but mental health and sleep is a global concern. And as you can see from this data, global 2025, half of the population have sleep and weight problem. And among these individuals, half of them already seek for solution to reduce stress, anxiety, to reduce fatigue, and also to improve sleep difficulties. And so, one people out of three is already spending money trying to solve such problems. And this is serious. This is a huge market opportunity on where we can bring something, hopefully, that is going to improve their quality of life, our quality of life, actually. Now, obviously, as you have seen from my affiliation, I am the Chief Scientific Officer at Probiotical, and as the name suggests, we do produce probiotics. And so within probiotics, psychobiotics is also the fast-growing category in probiotics. This is really good. It is a great opportunity. As you can see today, we sit in a $500 million market, but it is going to increase in the next years, doubling that with actually a yearly cumulative rate of 11%. And so this is something that creates room for growth. It means that people are interested in using microorganisms to aid problems which are not anymore related to the gut, like the classic probiotics, but are related to the mind, and therefore the mind-gut axis, the brain axis that we are going to discuss later on in more detail. Interestingly, among the people who buy probiotics, only 20% of them use probiotics for mental well-being. So there is a huge market opportunity to be explored further. And, well, a statement. This is our scientific convention. So we did not start on the gut-brain axis because it was fashionable. As you're going to see, our studies started more than 10 years ago. It was not even a topic of discussion. We were curious to see if gut-brain axis could be somehow modulated by probiotics. And we started by curiosity, scientific curiosity. Today, it is going to be a market opportunity. But in the past, we were just driven by science. In fact, I'm going to show you a narrative overview of the results that we got in this field, but we are active also in other scientific program, in autism, Parkinson, Alzheimer, cognitive decline. Each of these topics has clinical studies, in vitro studies, preclinical studies, quite bulky evidences. And we even provide today ethical supply, for example, to autistic children in our city, in Novara, because we clearly could measure that probiotics could ease their quality of life, for example. On this premise, just a brief overview of the gut-brain axis and how bidirectional it works. So it is not a simple interaction. It is extremely complex to describe, even though the picture there is super easy. But let's say that there are four main routes of bidirectional communication between the gut and its microbiome and the brain. Obviously, by the vagus nerve. So it is a neuronal communication. Then there is the immune communication. As you know, the intestine hosts the biggest immunity of the whole body, and therefore it communicates with the brain, with the cytokine, chemokines, and so on. But there are also neurotransmitters. Serotonin, GABA are present in the gut, and as well microbial metabolites. For example, short-chain fatty acids like acetic acids, lactic acid, butyric acids, and so on. All these kind of molecules and many more, which are being discovered also day by day, they do interact with the body systemically and a lot with the brain. Just some numbers for your curiosity. 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut, and over 500% of the melatonin is present in the gut compared to plasma. Now, without going into technicalities, because it is quite complex, it doesn't mean that serotonin and melatonin cross the blood-brain barrier and goes in the brain. But it is fascinating that there are so many compounds which are recognized to govern the brain activity and are being produced in the gut. And now research is trying to explain what's going on for the future. Introducing the formula that we started to investigate more than 10 years ago, actually, it is a 4-strain psychobiotic blend. It is composed by different probiotic species. You know them because they are quite common as species, and they are Fermentum rhamnosus plantarum and one Bifidobacterium longum. And the formula is made of 4 billion live cells. This study, this product, has been probably the first worldwide to be investigated also with flow cytometry, ISO 19344. And even though it is not the focus today, we have been historically the ambassador of flow cytometry application in the probiotic industry. And this study, the first one, has been a sort of milestone, a landmark, because it's been the first one to report data also with that kind of technology, flow cytometry technology. And, well, I particularly like this slide because you can have in a glance the overview of the studies that we made. It is a 7-year arc of publication, let's say, but in 2019, we had the first publication. Obviously, the study started 2 years before, so it was 2017, 2016. And as you can see, as you can appreciate, we started with the proof of concept. Let's ask ourselves if a probiotic mixture could influence mood, cognition, and sleep. These were the main three topics. Then we moved on a really complex study. It is the only one that I'm not going to describe today, the 2021, which was based on impressive metabolomics, based on nuclear magnetic resonances, where we created the spectra of individuals exposed by this mixture, trying to understand if and how the probiotic mixture could change the metabotype of the individuals. It is too much for today's presentation, but it is, let's say, a methodological milestone in the fields as well. In 2023, we moved on the bigger study, which did focus also on biological marker to confirm the proof of concept. So the Walden study in 2023 has been designed on the proof of concept data that we got in 2019. And so the power study, the powers calculation were made on the previous funding. And then lately, we moved on biomarkers because obviously all the studies related to mood and cognition are based somehow on subjective questionnaire, clinically validated, not self-reported. This is important. Clinically validated self-questionnaire, which is a quality statement, but it is subjective. Okay? And so we always had this kind of curiosity. Okay, if it is subjective and you have also a placebo effect within a subjective assessment, what we could measure in terms of biomarker that could bring an objective evaluation of our probiotic formula? And so we moved in the biomarker area, where we did publish some studies specifically on biomarkers, and we are going to discuss them later. Till the latest evidences that have been published just a few weeks ago on this very topic. What I always love to present, to discuss is that the 4 clinical studies that we made have been also conducted in different countries. The first one in Italy, the Walden and Kirksik was done in US at the Lindenwood University. Then we moved in Australia with the Mosconi Sedecaia, and we came back to Italy in Florence with the nuclear magnetic resonance metabolomics as well. So 4 independent trials that generated today 8 peer-reviewed papers. You can find them on PubMed. They are open source, obviously, across 3 continents, and which enrolled 168 total subjects as well. Now, the mechanism of action. They've been all documented, and they are based on clinical data and biomarkers. This is what I love mostly. Obviously, we wanted to see effect on mood, but we wanted also to have a proof of objective change during these studies. And so we had a neurotransmitter modulation measuring serotonin and GABA. We also could measure on the stress axis the cortisol response, and obviously it was reduced. We were able to find and measure anti-inflammatory marker like cross-reactive protein, LBP, which is a marker of bacterial translocation, or soluble CD14, which is a marker of immunity that is related to sepsis, but lately in 2023, this marker has been linked to practically mood disorders. So an inflammatory marker that could be linked to mood disorder. And now you can see that the story is starting to build somehow in a way where you see, okay, I am inflamed, maybe I have mood disorder, or I have mood disorder, which implies that I'm going to be inflamed. You don't know who comes first. But you see that the story is starting to build. You can put in that recipe also the barrier integrity, so reduce the endotoxinemia that we could measure, and as well an increased antioxidant activity when you took this kind of product. The latest results that we got was on signaling, and we also had some endocrine results, and specifically the reduction of GIP hormone, GLP-1 hormone. This is, let's say, the brother of that one. Now, looking at each single, let's say, study that we made, this is trial 1 made by Marotta in Italy. the exploratory proof of concept, we were able to measure changes versus the baseline at 6-week intervention, so 6 weeks of probiotic intervention on different marker of basically depression and subscales of depression, with a reduction of 44% in depression, anger 37%, and fatigue 21%, together with an improvement of perceived sleep quality index of 29%. At that time, this was the first study to link together mood and sleep quality. And the hypothesis in the paper basically was that reducing depression, anger, and fatigue, people slept better. Or maybe the opposite, sleeping better, you were able to reduce depression, fatigue, and anger. Who knows? What I found particularly robust was the fact that the effect persisted 3 weeks after the end of supplementation. Now, we have a little bit of proof of engrafting, so some microorganisms, probiotic microorganisms, could have been able to colonize the gut and maybe to continue their effect. Those are hypotheses, but who knows? We did measure that the effect was kept 3 weeks after the end of the study as well. Now, moving in the US at the Lindenwood University with our largest randomized clinical trial, we were able to measure and to confirm on depression and anxiety, and we did add a biological marker, serotonin. And so we were able to measure a significant improvement in the probiotic already at week 6 and even after the washout. So serotonin at the intestinal level was increasing, and from a clinical point of view, we had a reduction on the anxiety, both the state anxiety and trait anxiety. Interestingly, also rumination as well. And only for male, we had a reduction of the back depression inventory, which is a specific question that measure a stronger state of depression, let's say. Looking at sleep quality, we had a dedicated analysis, so a post-hoc analysis of the Lindenwood University study. And as you can see, we had a reduction of the sleep latency, so how long it takes before you get asleep, and an improvement again of the perceived sleep quality indexes. Interestingly, the probiotic group had a constant systolic blood pressure, while the placebo group had an increased systolic blood pressure, increase. We don't know the meaning of it, but it is fascinating that also the systolic blood pressure was kept stable with the probiotic supplementation. And again, this study in US, the Kirkestick 1, which measured a reduced latency, was well paired with our previous study in Italy, where we were able to measure a reduction of 29% of the sleep quality indexes. Now, moving on biomarkers, this study was done in Australia, and the population is different. Till now, we were discussing about healthy individuals, young healthy individuals. Now we are moving in the sub-threshold depressed individual. So those are not anymore an healthy group. They are depressed individual, but not yet under medication. Therefore, sub-threshold depressed individual without drugs, because otherwise it would have been too complex to add the variables of treatments. In such individuals, we had a striking, impressive, amazing, in my opinion, change of certain biomarkers. As you can see, we had a strong reduction in glucose, but as well in cross-reactive protein, which is an index of intestinal inflammation, an increase in antioxidant defense, and a decrease of cortisol, together with the indexes of depression. So the back depression indexes and the hospitalized anxiety depression scale, because those people were in hospitals, which were already visible at 6 weeks of treatment and maintaining also during the washout. And so this was our first randomized clinical trial that basically was able to put together an improvement in mood, but as well a reduction in inflammation and an effect on metabolism, as you can see on glucose, within a psychobiotic trial. Again, these subjects were followed by clinicians, so those are not self-reported questionnaire, hospital setting, okay? And so, we made lately, this year, a new publication in Nutrients, just a few weeks ago, because we did biobank stool, urine, and blood from such individuals for later on analysis. It is always good to make biobanking because you run your study, you made your hypothesis, but who knows what you could find. And so if you biobank biologic fluid and you store them for the future, then you may look for something new. And this is what we made. We took the biobanked material and says, okay, what else? What we can measure? And we found this data. Again, we were able to measure a significant reduction of bacterial endotoxin translocation. Now, I think that most of you know the theory of intestinal permeability. So if you got your intestine vulnerable and you get your tight junction that open up, your intestinal contents start to move, let's say. Within that content, you have microorganisms, your own microbiota. If it is dysbiotic, you may have a particular load of inflammatory bacterial compounds like lipopolysaccharides or stuff like that. We measured in clinical setting on humans that we were able to reduce the endotoxinic translocation from the gut to the systemic part, which imply by definition reduction of inflammation. Okay, and at the same time a reduction of the one of the innate immune activation marker, which is a soluble CD14, that again today seems to be also correlated to mood shift when it is increased. It's an interesting new finding. And also we had a reduction on GIP. So we had a sort of normalized endocrine function that is glucose dependent. And if you remember on the previous study, we were able to measure a reduction of glucose metabolisms as well. So to have a sort of overview of our studies with the product that is named Bifizen, we have 5 different evidence layers, from the microbiome to the clinical outcome. We were able to recover in stool the probiotic formula. We were able to actually describe 3 different bacteriotypes among the cohorts. Not all of them gave the same answer to the treatment, which is normal, so less or more responsive. But we were also able to measure the composition shift. I could not put too much material in this presentation, but we also did measure, for example, an increase in Akkermansia in some of these people that got the probiotic supplementation, probably because it triggered a sort of cross-feeding in the gastrointestinal, in the gut microbiome. We were able to run metabolome studies with a high sophisticated platform like nuclear magnetic resonances. On layer 2, I didn't show any data. Those are too complex, but I suggest you to download the article on Journal Proteomics, because in my opinion, they are among the most fascinating findings in this field. Serotonin, we have seen an increase in serotonin and actually even a sort of drug pattern behavior of the serotonin increase at the gastrointestinal level. And interestingly, we got a huge inflammation overall improvement, again, with the marker of inflammation like cross-reactive protein, cortisol, and LBP CD14, and an increase in antioxidant activity. Overall, we were able, with the clinically validated questionnaire, not self-reported, able to measure in 3 different clinical settings, in Italy with the Marotta, in US with the Kerksick, and in Australia with the Latrobe, a reduction in depressive anxiety markers, and also an improvement in sleep. And well, those are sort of claims that you could somehow use if you trust our formula that can be formulated in a probiotic product, of which we obviously offer a service of product design. So any moment you have an idea, okay, you can come to us asking more detail, download the article, but then select also other ingredients or other botanicals that could aid and improve and strengthen the formula. This is the core. This is the base. Then we can move there for any kind of format, whatever you like. So if you are curious about that, please, let's talk. We have the booth. I don't remember the number, sorry, but we are probiotical, so easy to find down there. And thank you for your attention.